Hey, welcome back to another episode of Whiskey Riff Raff. We are here backstage at the Grand Ole Opry with Mr. Larry Fleet.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that you are one of the most underrated artists to me. Not because you don't have any commercial success, but I just feel like your voice alone should be bigger. It should make you bigger than you are. But also your songwriting is so creative that like when people talk about underrated artists, I think of you first.
Why don't you go shout that from the rooftop? Let everybody know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do all right, you know. It's but yeah, sometimes you see people doing things, and as an artist or just a competitive person, I'm like, dang man, like I've done pretty good. Like I never get nominated for anything or nothing like that. But you know what? Yeah, I pay my bills and I do all right. So it's I never cared really about being like the most famous person because I like going to Cracker Barrel and nobody knowing who I am. You know what I mean? So
True.
there's pros and cons to it, I guess. But thanks for saying that.
Well, yeah, Whiskey Riff's a big fan of yours, and so we anytime we can, we try to support you.
Yeah, I know. Thanks.
We've also caught wind of your own podcast. So right now you're on our podcast, but you have your own podcast, Highway Feet with Larry Fleet. That's correct. What made you do that, and what's that experience been like so far, having a podcast?
Well, it kind of started from just sitting around talking to people and being like, telling stories about on the road. And I was saying, man, the craziest stuff, like the most unbelievable things happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tell these stories and they're just like, man, you ought to start a podcast and let kind of everybody else hear these stories. So, it's kind of the same way whenever I started singing and playing music, enough people told me, hey, you're pretty good. You ought to give it a chance. And I believed it after a while. So same thing happened with the podcast. Enough people said you should do it that I guess I believed it. And I was like, well, okay. So I bought all the stuff. And me and my bass player, Crazy Legs, he's on there with me. And he's a character in himself. But and then my buddy Les, who we've been friends forever, he works for me too. We just have a ton of stories. And we started doing that. And Highway Feet was a song that me and Jamie Johnson wrote a long time ago. And I just thought it was a cool name, so put it together, and people are actually listening in. It's we're seeing the numbers growing pretty good. So enough people want to hear our stupidity. It's working out. We're meeting people on the road, and they're like, "Man, I love that podcast." So it's working, but it just kind of came out of people wanting to hear stories, and we just thought, well, all right. And I honestly kind of thought I could use it as a promotional tool to kind of say, hey, we're going to be playing, wherever. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of, all of it put together was the reason why we did it. But we're actually having a lot of fun doing it. It's pretty good times.
I feel like it's a perfect platform for a country artist or any artist because you have so many stories on the road. It's just like, if you were my favorite artist, I want to hear everything. The good, the bad, just all the backstage stories and everything. And not every artist shares that much. It's a cool way to see it.
Yeah, there's we talk a lot about before everything really took off. We were, in my Dodge pickup truck pulling a U-Haul trailer for a long time, and then went to an RV, and for quite a few years we rode around. I drove the RV for thousands and thousands of miles every year, and so we tell a lot of stories, on that level, which you deal with a lot worse things, a lot more crap, at that level than what we do now. We still deal with a lot of stuff, but so there's a lot of funny things and crazy things that are happening in there, and some of it's just conspiracy theories. It could be whatever.
Or we're talking about those a little bit before we got started recording, but if you're talking, we might as well mention it. We were talking about corn, right? Corn conspiracies before we got started officially.
Yeah, that's spawned from watching I just got back from Europe a couple of days ago, and I got one of those double-decker buses, so they had a TV in my little bedroom, and it didn't have like cable on it like mine does here, but it had like pre-programmed movies in it. Mm-hmm. Most of them were in different languages, and I can't read fast enough to try to keep up with what's going on, but there was one that wasn't in English, and I was like, and it was all about the food grade stuff, and everything's made from corn, and I was like, I really dove in. I was like, conspiracies, like they're trying to kill me, the corn industry, like it was I called my wife. I was like, "Can you believe what's going on?" And so yeah, it's been on my mind a lot right now.
Might pop up on your own podcast.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're going down that one for sure.
Well, I'll be tuning in to listen to that.
Yeah.
But one of the episodes that I was also saw on there was John Daly says I'm coachable, and whenever here played college golf, so we have to hear your story about John Daly.
I wasn't gonna mention that, but I don't go around just promoting.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should. I'm terrible at golf, but I got to be friends with John Daly, and just throughout the years, and he's always wanting to go play. And I told him 100 times, like, I'm terrible, I'm a terrible golfer, but I go play these. So we were flying back one day, and my phone rings, and it's John Daly. He calls me a lot, and my wife's like, answer it. And it was a FaceTime thing, so I'm on the plane. You couldn't hear it, and I said, I'll call you back, and all I heard was 3:00. Sunday, tomorrow, whatever. And I was like, okay. And then I called him back. He's like, let's go play golf. I said, I go out there and I'm hitting it and shanking it over here. And finally he was like telling me what to do with my hands. And so it got me where I was driving pretty straight. And then by the end of the day, he said, you know what, you're coachable. And he said, give me 2 years and I can make a golfer out of you. And I thought, just 2 years, so I can be on tour. But yeah, he thought I did pretty good, which I took that as a compliment. So.
I just went for the first time, and it's actually a lot harder than I ever anticipated or expected. I will say, I think 18 holes should be illegal, 9 only. 9 only.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with that one. So.
And walking the course, get up.
Oh yeah, no, golfer all day.
No.
To have a personal trainer or personal coach than John Daly, that would be pretty sweet. So
he's got the coolest golf cart too. It's like this, it's like a Model A or something, or like some old Mercedes thing. It's got like one of those horns on the outside, like a, and he's a character, man. I don't know if y'all hung out with him much, but I love him. He's a good dude, good heart, and can drive the ball. Like people were lining up on the golf course just to watch him hit the ball. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's cool. Yeah.
Well, we obviously want to talk to you a little bit about music, and I thought it was such a cool thing that your debut project was Stack of Records, which you've talked about a lot, is inspired by a stack of records. Mm-hmm. So the name there lines up exactly with how it came to be. Can you speak on was it an actual physical stack of records that you still have?
Oh yeah.
That inspired that first project?
Yeah, it came from, so my parents had like this radio that's, I don't know, it's this tall. Mm-hmm. Had these foam speakers on the front of it, like, and a mouse got in the house one time and eat all the foam off of it. It was a whole other thing. But it had a record player on top and it had like this little cabinet underneath. And it was just full of records. So my mom was like the rocker, like loved like Ozzy Osbourne and, stuff like that. But her first concert was like Willie Nelson. So she was very all over the place, Pink Floyd and stuff like that. And I was joking around. I was like, I'm pretty sure my mom smoked weed back in the day. But it was, so you had like a very wide range. So as a kid, I would go up there and I thought it was really cool to take that record out and put it on the turntable. So I would just sit and listen to music and I could hear each like instrument so I could learn how to play the songs. And so I would do that and listen to records. Then my dad he loved like Marshall Tucker and Hank Jr. He had like every Hank Jr. record and singer. And he was really, Merle Haggard and stuff. So he was big into Southern rock and country. And then I had a neighbor across the road, Kevin. He was same age. He was like a year older than me, but we would ride four-wheelers and stuff together. I'd go to his house every day after school. We'd ride four-wheelers and I'd go in and his mom was like, hey, I heard you've been playing music. I was like, yeah. She said, well, I got something for you to listen to. She gave me an Otis Redding album. So went back and listened to that and I was like, whoa. And then I found Temptations and all the soul stuff and Ray Charles and stuff. And my granddad gave me a John Berry record and or Chuck Berry and John Berry too. But yeah, so I had this huge range of music that I was into. And as I got older, it got into, like Allman Brothers and stuff like that. So when I first started playing bars, I kind of had like almost an Allman Brothers tribute band because we just like jam and, drink beer at the time, hang out. And it was really cool. So I was inspired by so many things, but Willie Nelson was a big one when it came to like Red-Headed Stranger and things like that was what made me want to write songs and tell stories.
Mhm.
And so, but then, I got into, like I said, Allman Brothers or even Dave Matthews and stuff like that, and watching how people crafted a song. So I was into not just listening to music, but figuring out what they were doing. And I still, last night I sat up and watched a whole bunch of stuff on Blackberry Smoke, and I was like, yeah, I like that. That's cool. And so I do it now. Like I get inspiration. Even when I'm on the road, I've just been out in Wallen for 2 weeks in Europe. Watch him every night. We play together and stuff. But I'm watching what they're doing. I've been out with Willie Nelson and everybody, and I watch how they interact with the crowd or what their fan base looks like or whatever. And I just learn from people, even now. And so the Stack of Records album came from me growing up on Stack of Records. So every little song on there is pulled from a different thing. There's soulful stuff. There's very country things. There's very singer-songwriter storytelling things. So that record, it's still close to me. I love that one because I wrote every song on it, and I wrote it to be that, where it was every song was a little different. And so I kind of crafted it that way. And it's still, I guess, one of the most requested albums like that I have. So I mean, I've got 3 or 4 of them out there, but that one, we get the most songs requested from that record,
Yeah.
And being a songwriter, I have so many questions. Like, how did you even realize that you could write a song? When did that start?
Well, that wasn't very good, but it was started whenever I was like in probably high school or so. I used to write in elementary school. They would be like, you want to write poems, so you could write poems, and if they were good enough, you can get it published in a book. And I got my first song published whenever I was 3rd or 4th grade or something like that. And so I just liked it and thought it was cool. And I guess I got an knack for making things rhyme, I guess. But so I kept at it, and then as I learned to play music early on, I got tired after 10 years of playing everybody else's songs that I just wanted to write my own thing. So started writing my own songs in high school, and they were garbage. I mean, they were terrible, and they were bad for a long time. But enough of you buddies were like, man, that's good. You sit around and play something in the garage that you wrote, and enough buddies say, that's pretty good. You ought to go for it. So then you just keep writing. And it was an outlet for me to kind of whatever was on my mind. So I would write those, and then finally got brave enough to go out to a writer's round and just got my feelings hurt there because I'm out there and I'm like, this song's so good, I'm playing it, and then this dude comes up and is like, I wrote this for Hank Jr. And I'm like, God, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible songwriter. And so, but again, that made me want to be better. So I learned how they crafted things, and that's still my favorite thing to do, is write songs. And when you get on a good one, your hair stands up, and it's like, oh, there's nothing better when you land a hook just right, and or if you write something, somebody else cuts it. That's a huge honor to me, is hearing something on the radio or whatever that you've written for somebody else. So that's where my heart is. I love playing live shows, but writing a song is where it's at for me.
And that's one of my biggest questions about songwriting is, you're married, but you can write a heartbreak song and either you'll cut it or someone else will cut it. How do you get in the headspace to write about something like that when that isn't necessarily your current situation?
I'm a title guy, so like in my phone is just hundreds of song titles. And some days I sit down and I'll just be picking on the guitar. I'm like, this feels like Man Made a Bar or whatever. And it's like, so you kind of, certain things I hear feels like a certain vibe to me or a title. And so then I've had my heart broke just like anybody else, so I know how to write that. I don't drink anymore, but I drank for a long time, and it was a rowdy dude for a very long time. So I know what it's like to write a beer drinking song, and so I've lived it. That's the only way I know how to write a song, is if I've lived it. If I don't know anything about it, I can't write about it. But
do you find it difficult to write, perform or even cut songs about drinking if you don't drink anymore?
No,
not at all.
Because I love when people show up and they're drunk.
Yeah.
Good
time.
Yeah, they're having a good time, and I know exactly what they're doing because I'm like, and I want to help them along, So there's a time and place for everything. But yeah, it didn't bother me at all. And people sitting around drinking. I never went to rehab. And I just decided one day I was getting to a point where it hurt so bad to get drunk. And I was like, God, I can't do this no more. And then a lot of other things started happening and having kids and stuff. And I was like, I didn't got time for this. And I didn't have the urge to drink anymore. I just quit caring about it. It wasn't fun to me anymore. So that's why I quit. And, but yeah, there's a lot of people that show up and man, they work hard all week, and Friday night they're gonna turn loose because it's the weekend, you know. And I got a song for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's called "Quitting Ain't Working," you know. And so I know how honky tonk the best of them, and I know how to do that, and I can sing it, and it's still fun. And I like to watch other people have a good time, and that's why they're there, is to have fun and cut loose. So that can happen.
We've got a couple of questions about some of your specific songs. One of my personal favorites of yours is "Things I Take for Granted." Was there a certain moment that inspired that song, or was that one that kind of like over the years has slowly built itself up?
That was in the moment.
Mm.
I wrote 2 songs that day. That one and "Man Made a Bar" from Morgan Area Church, and so that was a good day. But that morning we wrote "Man Made a Bar," and then I went to do sound check. We were in, let's call it Arkansas, somewhere out there, and we were playing like a theater or something. I went in to do sound check, and I was just standing out talking to my buddies in the parking lot. And I was like, man, it's the days like these that, you know, I missed my family, like being out here. At the time, I just had one bus, and it was just a bunch of dudes piled on it. You know, my family couldn't come out with me. So I'm like, man, it's the little things that I miss the most, like, you know, throwing football with my boy, or, you know, tucking the kids in at night, or, you know, a lot of different things, like little things that you take for granted. And then I was like, man, "Things I Take for Granted" sounds like a good song title. So we went in and started writing, and that's when like catching 3 green lights in a row and things like, you know, it's just little things you just take for granted every day. So to me, it felt like a good song and a strong song title. But yeah, we wrote both of those songs that day in probably 2 hours, you know, hour apiece, something like that, and both of them ended up on the radio. And I always joke, I'm like, I could use about 13 more days like that. We'll finally get that pool, you know. But yeah, that's how it can go.
And when it comes to "Man Made a Bar," how do you choose what songs are for you and what songs you allow others to cut?
Well, most songs are for me, because I write them that way. It's something that I just want to write. But "Man Made a Bar" was going to be mine too, but Morgan could take a song, and, you know, he needed 2 songs to finish his record, and he hit me up and was like, "Hey, you got anything?" I said, "Yeah, I got one. I got a couple." And I actually sent both "Things I Take for Granted" and that one. And Morgan and I sent a couple to him. He's like, "Man, that feels like you, you know." And I sent him "Man Made a Bar," and he's like, "This is great." I said, "If you want it, you can have it. If not, I'm gonna do it. So no, you know, whatever you want to do." He said, "Okay." But then like a week later, he called me and said, "Hey, I cut that song." I was like, "Great, cool." And then talked to my producer, and he was like, "Hey, I don't think we're gonna put it out. It's the most country thing on the record. Like, it doesn't really fit with everything." I was like, "Great, you've already recorded it. I'll just take it and I'll sing it, and then yeah, it's quicker." And but then Morgan called like a day or 2 later and said, "Hey, I got Eric Church to sing it with me too." I was like, "Well, it's definitely going on the record if you got Eric to sing on it." So, and then, you know, it come out, and it was so happy. If you got a 36 song record that comes out, you don't want to be number 35 or 6 because nobody's probably going to hear it. But I think it's number 3 or 4 or something like that on the track listing. So it worked out great, and ended up going to radio. And that was the first number 1 I'd written for somebody. So worked out pretty good. But that one, I mean, I don't know. I got a lot of songs and a lot of people, and I can write more. So if somebody wants one of my songs, good, have it, and I'll go write another one. That one just it fit him, and then there's a lot of irony things that happened around that too. But you know, with him and Eric both owning bars and stuff now, and him throwing a chair off of Eric's, and then it was sitting at number 2 on the charts. And whenever all that happened, I was like, Morgan, come on. but it finally went number 1. But there was a lot went around it, but it worked and it fit him. That's what he liked, and he thought it was great. So, and Eric loved it too. So, at the time, I didn't realize how good it was, and then hearing them on it, I was like, well, it makes sense now. It ended up where it needed to be. And I feel like songs will end up where they need to be, and everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. So that's what was supposed to happen with it.
I've heard that song 100 times, and now it actually makes sense that you wrote it. Like, I can hear you in it after I listened to your newest album, Front to Bottom, today. I was like, oh, I can definitely hear you in that song.
Yeah.
I can imagine you singing in it, so.
You have to hear the demo of it. Like, I do it different than what he does it, but he did his thing on it. It sounds great. But yeah, I mean, I wrote it like I would play it, and that's kind of my thing. I'm not good at writing songs for people. I just write songs, and if it ends up with somebody, it ends up with them. And I've been lucky enough to have a few end up with different people, but that was definitely the biggest one. And it worked out, but I would have cut it myself too.
And I feel like we can't talk to you about talking about your biggest song that not someone else cut, but you cut, Where I Found God. When people think of Larry Fleet, I feel like people think of that song. And I was fortunate enough to see you at the Ryman, which was crazy seeing that. How do you feel like that song has just changed your life? And did you know it was going to do that when you wrote it?
I don't know. I didn't have a record deal when I wrote it. And there was another really big artist, and he wanted it. And so he took it and had it on hold for a year. And then I messed around, got a record deal. I was like, hey, I kind of want this song. Like, if he's not going to do it, then I feel like there's something there. And me and my buddies would always ride around and listen to it, the demo of me singing it, when we're going duck hunting or whatever. And enough guys that they got it. They were like me. And they were like, dude, this is amazing. I didn't know it was that good. And I knew it was a good song. I felt I could feel it, but I didn't know it was going to react the way it did. Well, then I get the song back, and we recorded it, and they shelved it. It didn't go out on the Working Hard project was the first thing I did with Big Loud. It didn't go out. They just put the 8 songs, and we'll figure out something to do with it. Well, I was like, hey, why don't we put this song on Good Friday? And so, on 2020. Didn't know that the world was going to shut down, but the way it happened, and I already did a little video and everything for it, and then whenever it dropped, boom, COVID hit. So everybody was, I guess, home watching YouTube, and it kind of blew up. Well, then radio stations started playing it, and I was like, man, we got something here. And then that ended up being my first song on radio, and it has grown, and it still grows. Like, people are just now finding that song. And I'm like, that thing's been out for 4 years, and it's like, and they're still just finding it. And then we go to Europe, and me and Morgan sing it together every night, and in front of 15, 20,000 people a night. So then there's a lot of people in different countries that have never heard the song. They get to see it with just me and him. I'm playing guitar, and that's it, And so it has been the song that, it's made my career, and it's been the foundation, which that's a really good foundation to stand on. And so we got that, but I mean, people, they relate to it because, it was, I've heard this is kind of crazy, but there was a couple people that have died in like car wrecks, and they show up and they'd be like, that was the song that was on repeat when they found them, which is, I don't know, it's kind of crazy, but it's like, you hear that, it's pretty heavy, but at the same time, you're like, wow, that's something there. Then it's been played at funerals, it's been played in churches, and it's been played all over the world. So I love that is the song that people know me for, because like Morgan said the other night, he said, I think it's one of the best written songs I've ever heard. And so that was what people know me for. Good. I'm pretty proud of that one. So
can you share who had it on hold?
Luke Bryan had it on hold.
Okay.
And one of those things, I've got songs on hold that I've never even heard before. So I don't know if he ever heard the song or not. They just called and said, hey, they got it on hold for him. And there was a couple other people that was wanting it at the time too, and he ended up with it. And then at the time, I was like, man, that'd be great, because I could use some tires on my truck, and if he cut that, that'd be, you know, I'd be able to afford that. But you know, it didn't work out, and thank God it didn't, because we'd be in a different situation. I'd probably just be a songwriter, and that'd be it right now, you know what I mean? But that is what boosted my career. It took me from selling 50 to 100 tickets a night to selling 1,000 plus or whatever. And so that's the song that people know me for. And if that's what they know me for forever, then I'm okay with it.
Which obviously, you know, people are going to know you up on stage, but then there's also another form of you that your family knows, like you're a dad, right?
Yeah.
So how has that affected, you know, your country music career? Has that changed your writing process?
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
time-wise, I'm sure things look a lot different now, right?
Yeah. The the songwriting has gotten even better, I think, and more powerful, because now I've gotten a little older and I have a family. You know, little boy's just turned 5, little girl's 3, and it's like, so I write songs about everyday life with them, and then there's so many other people that have little kids too, or they've had kids that are now grown, or you're about to have kids. So I got the Willie Nelson fan base going on. It's like, you know, they're little kids to grandparents, you know, and so yeah, it's to find me. So I mean, it's kind of I am, you know, a dad, and so they don't know that they don't have an idea of what I actually do. They just think it's cool. They get to go on the stage, and we're riding around in buses, and we're playing shows, and people are clapping. They just come on stage and dance around, and they think everybody's cheering for them, and they are. But it's like, it didn't quite register what it is, you know. And so they just get to come and have fun with me, and I get to see that, and so I write songs about it, and I write songs for them. I got, you know, plenty of kids songs I've been writing just to sing with them, you know. And so I mean, my whole way of thinking is way different than it was, you know, 5 or 6, 10 years ago. Whatever it was back then was beer drinking and raising hell and honky tonking, and then now it's like, well, I'm an old man. I feel like, you know, because we got these kids that are young and they'll wear you out, and I write things I take for granted. I write these things that people relate to because they got families. If you look at my fan base, that is kind of the biggest chunk of it is hardworking family type crowds, and they show up with their kids and stuff, and I love it because most of the time all the time when people talk to me, they're like, man, I can bring my kids to your show, and we're not, you know, cussing and smashing beers and, you know, getting crazy. Like we always joke and we say it's a family-friendly show, but it's still sexy. Okay? So, and that's, you know, that's what we're going after, is a safe place for you to bring your kids and you to have fun with your kids. The kid, you know, 5 or 6 years old, they can play with my kids. You know, like, we're gonna make it the best first concert for a kid. You know, and so that is the stuff I'm trying to write, is to make it where it's a safe place for everybody to come and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And being on the road is a big part of your life. I heard that there was a bus fire incident recently. Is that
Well,
correct?
that was a scare. Okay. So I don't really honestly know what happened. We were in Oregon, and we were getting ready to leave there and go somewhere, and we were leaving the parking lot, and so my bus is here and my band bus is right here, and then the Red Clay Strays, they were right beside us, and we were all just kind of hanging out, and all of a sudden you just see this smoke cloud come out behind the band bus, and I was like, it's on fire. And I think the driver there's like an emergency button you can hit, and it's a fire extinguisher, so it just cates the motor. Like, so if there was a motor fire, hit this button and it's like taking 10 fire extinguishers and just busting them. And
yeah.
So of course we draw a crowd, you know, and it's like, oh, it's embarrassing. But like, and the driver's like, well, I didn't do it. She totally did it. But it was like, we were like, okay, we don't know. We didn't want to like call her out, but yeah, she hit it. And so that was the bus fire. Like, I don't think it actually caught on fire. I think she just hit the button, and we ended up with whatever is in a fire extinguisher. I have no idea, but it's some sort of a powder, and it was everywhere. It looked like a crime scene. Like it was just stuff. It could. I mean, it when it blows up, it's like a 20-yard thing. I mean, it blew stuff everywhere. But that was a bus fire.
I guess better than an actual fire, so.
Way better, yeah. We drove out of there, so that was good. Yeah.
And I mean, stuff like that's going to happen out on the road, I'm sure, all the time. And you've got a pretty exciting event coming up on the road, the Field and Stream Music Festival, October 4th through the 6th in Winsboro, South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Is that an event that you've had circled on the calendar for a while?
Yeah, we've had that. I guess it's a brand new thing. I think.
Brand new.
But yeah, that came about, I don't know, couple months ago. My manager's over there looking at Facebook or something, but I don't know how long ago that we've had that, but it's been a few months or something, and I think it's going to be really fun, and I've been seeing pictures of where it's at. It's beautiful, so it's going to be a really cool spot. So yeah, I'm pumped up by it.
They have a lot of other things besides the music, like excursions for off-roading, fishing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So are there any of those outdoor activities that you like doing as well?
Oh, everything you just said. Yeah. I'm an outdoors guy, so they sent me this hat the other day, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, hunting, fishing, riding four-wheelers, whatever, like all that is, if it deals with being outside. I just ordered a new War Eagle boat the other day, so pretty pumped, about to get that in about a month. And so anything on the water, in the woods, being outside, that is what we're about. Like kids are too. My little boy's got a four-wheeler. He loves hunting and fishing with me and stuff. Little girl, she's into dresses and stuff. She's the girl, but like, she still likes riding four-wheelers with her daddy and stuff. So when it comes to killing a deer, I'm not sure she's there yet, but like, that is what I grew up on, and that's what makes me happy. And that's like where I find God. All that stuff came from being in a deer stand and, hay fields, just being outside. That's kind of where I find God. Not to throw a title, but that's literally where I find God. That's where I talk to praying and all that stuff is outside. And so, yeah, I'm all about that.
And were you a Field and Stream person before Eric Church and Morgan Wallen, made that move to take over Field and Stream?
I'm big into any like conservation stuff, but also I have all the magazines, stacks of them, and have looked at them since I was a kid, and we were reading up, trying to be the best deer hunter, best fisherman we could be. We watched all the shows growing up, and so yeah, it's not a new thing to me. I've lived it for a long time. So.
Well, let's wrap up by doing rapid fire that is brought to you by Field and Stream Music Festival.
Okay.
So
great choice in the hat.
Yeah.
They communicated there, so.
It matched, I think. I don't know.
First question is, what is your favorite outdoor activity? You gotta pick one.
Hunting. I mean, duck hunting is by far my favorite, but deer and turkey are right there. Just being that, hunting in general.
Fill in the blank, sad country songs and blank make me happy.
Sad country songs and babies.
There you go.
Yeah, you can't be mad at a baby. You know what I mean?
Who is your favorite artist? I know you mentioned a bunch, but who's just the first one that comes to mind?
Yeah, that's a hard one, but
we don't want to get you in trouble.
No, I mean,
You're the answer one.
Mine's always going to be older guy. I mean, Merle Haggard is probably right at the top. So.
Not a bad answer.
No.
What's something that's still on your bucket list? That could be career-wise or just, personal life.
Well, I mean, that's two different things, but I mean, career-wise, like, I want to headline an arena. I want to play for as many people as I can, or headline Red Rocks or something like, something big.
Yeah.
I've got to do the rhyming, and that's been cool. And then, I don't know, as far as personal goes, then, I mean, just raising up good kids that ain't brats, you know what I mean? That's what we can all hope for, is you try to do the best you can and give them things you didn't have, but, we just talked about this on the way over, it's like, you don't want to be brats either, so you try to raise good kids, that's what I'm striving for.
What is your favorite sad country song?
Shoot. Probably Whiskey Lullabies. That's pretty sad.
That's
Yeah, that's a good one.
that's a good one.
What about a go-to karaoke song that you
Oh.
bust out?
Let Her Cry, Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah.
Great one. And then last one is, what are you doing when you're not playing music?
Well, on the way over here, I work out, my health nut, clearly. And so, we like to work out, and I like to just be at my house because I'm not there a whole lot. And so when I'm home, I like to be home and go. I got property and stuff, so I spent all day yesterday getting deer blinds ready and stuff like that. So working on my property and hunting and just being around my house, honestly.
Yeah, I call that enjoying my rent.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
your time. Thank you to Field and Stream for promoting this podcast today, and I look forward to seeing you perform at that festival coming up.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much.
Yeah.